Welcome back to our channel. Today, we're talking about sales processes, and we have a guest. Nate and I have a new friend. His name is John Chapman, and he is an accomplished business person with extensive experience helping companies increase revenues by improving their sales processes. He is also an educator, consultant, and author, and he's been teaching us some new things even before we started recording. So we're going to continue the conversation. Nate just asked John about his philosophy on sales processes. So John, take it away. Introduce yourself and take it from there.
Hey everyone, it's John Chapman here, and I'm glad to be here. I met Nathan about 3 weeks ago and just met Simone this morning. We had an interesting conversation about artificial intelligence. And one of the things that when I work with companies is define who your target customer is, and that's where you have to start. And one of the things on Alignable, they ask you, who's your ideal customer? And sometimes companies don't know who their ideal customer is, but you really have to focus on who that is. And when I work with companies, I ask them, what does your customer want? And what do you provide for your customer? And then I say, what are your goals? And what are your customer's goals? And fascinating, 9 times out of 10, what your goals are and what your customer goals are not aligned. And so that's where the real work begins, because your goals and your customer goals, they have to align. That's when you know you have the ideal customer. So start there. What are your goals and what are your customers' goals? But qualifying and targeting customers it takes some work. Can't just pick up the phone and smile and dial. Those days are over. You have to get there's a lot of tools out there that can help you do that. LinkedIn Navigator, Zoom Info, all that will get you those contacts and ideal customers. And then you do your research on that customer. Does your product or service, would that be a good fit for this particular entity or company? Once you do that, you ask all these questions, and what questions would you like to know? That's when you pick up the phone and make a sales call. And all you're trying to do is get an appointment or have a conversation about your product or service with the buyer on the other end of the line. Now, Simone, you're about to ask a question, I can tell.
Well, I wanted to kind of tell a story, actually. We were working with just to give an example, we were working with a young lady a while back who owns a bakery, and she has a shop, but then she also wanted to do some catering for local businesses. And she had an idea of what to offer and how to do the whole catering thing, but we had her actually go and talk to her ideal client first before she packaged up her catering services. And she spoke to a few of them, and when she came back, she said, wow, I had one idea of what they would want and what they would need, but they told me something completely different. Now I have a whole different idea of what I should be offering and how I should be packaging this service. So what John says is true in real life, that when you actually go and speak to your ideal client, or you do the research and you find out what it is they're thinking, it might be something completely different than what you're thinking.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm working with a company now and they're launching a new product. And so, it's a female-owned business, and it's in the 3D printing space. And I said, and so she's asking, and she doesn't like sales calls. And I said, but you have customers that adore you. She's very personable and knows her stuff. I said, pick out 10 of them and pick up the phone and call them, and tell them here's the reason. Have some questions about the new product, and And she's getting some insightful information from those conversations, tweaking it here, tweaking it there. And hopefully they're going to launch it in July. But, again, talk to your customers. If you're coming out with a new product or service, is this something that interests you? Does it fill a niche that we're currently not filling? You have to, that's what people, and we talked about this earlier, is you got to go out there and see what the market's saying about your product or service before you launch a new product or service.
Yeah.
John, I was wondering real quick, what do you say to those business owners that they maybe they don't really have a process necessarily? It's more of like they just but they're pretty sure that if you can get a customer in front of them, they'll convert them like 90% of the time. But it's that whole thing of like getting the customer in front of them, like, and what would you say to someone someone like that, a business owner that has,
All right, so great question. So
Yeah.
again, you've done your research, you finally get the person on the phone, and so you start, you basically say, do I have permission to ask you some questions? And the first question I always say, they know pretty much, Nate, you're in the marketing game. Simone, you're in the marketing game. And at the end of the day is don't splur about your business. You want to find out about their business. And always people say, well, what keeps you up at night? To Nate, you'd say, Nate, what keeps you up at night? But really, the question is, Nate, what keeps your customers up at night? Because they're the ones buying from you. And then you try to really understand business owners' goals at the end of the day and their customers' goals. And so you formulate some of the pain points between what your goals are and what their customer goals are. And then again, you're asking questions. What ifs, and have you thought about this? And tell me more. You're trying to get them to talk more about their pain points. And then once you have that all together, you're not trying to sell them, you're just trying to understand, if there's a fit. Now, many times when I was in industry, I'd have conversations with people and I would say, it sounds to me like this is not a good fit. Do you agree, Mr. Buyer? And the buyer would say, yeah, I agree. Or no, well, here's some things that you may be able to help me with. The goal right at the beginning there is just, first of all, trying to understand their business, create a human connection, and build trust. I hate when somebody calls me on the phone. I don't answer usually if it's a number, but sometimes I'm driving along and I know this is I got time and I'm got a 3-hour drive. I'm gonna see what this person has to say, and they go right into their spiel, And I'm at the age now where I'm on I'm 65, so I've got Medicare, but just Part A, So I get all these phone calls, from insurance companies about Medicare. And I let them go through their spiel, and I said, you haven't even asked me, if I have insurance or not, I have insurance. I'm good. So thank you very much for your phone call. But they, they spend, 45 seconds spilling, and I hate that. And that's why I don't do that. You call Nate. Hey, Nate, I'm a marketing consultant, but I'm really calling to learn about your business.
Right.
That's where it starts. Everybody forgets that. Really, where it starts.
Earlier we had mentioned, briefly touched on the idea of automating the top of the funnel. So, but it sounds like you are more of the belief that it's better to have that personal touch to begin with. Yeah,
absolutely. Think about it. It's in today's world, it's got to be personalized at the end of the day. I tell students, go to work with a company that you can find, you really believe in the product, they take care of you. And then the companies you're dealing with, that you're calling on, find out as much information as you can about them. What's their culture like? What are the people like? Are they easy to do business with? And then when you make that phone call, try to make a human connection. Do your research on LinkedIn and Facebook. You may know people. It's getting, what everybody forgets, sales is so bad, but it's as you know, it's getting that first appointment and having those selling conversations. It's all about finding where your value proposition can marry up to their value proposition to create something even better. So
Right.
again, you start with your target customer. That is, at the end of the
That's where
day,
you start.
and
Yeah, and I wanted to emphasize something that you said as well, the personalization. It's easier to personalize when when you're an industry where your customer, where you may be selling high ticket to a low volume of customers. Um, but I wanted to point out that you can also personalize when you are selling more low ticket to a high volume of customers using automation and using segmentation. It is there are times when the customer has interacted with you or on your website or whatever, and I've seen like lots of websites where it's a picture of a car, a picture of a building is the first thing you see, and I always tell people, put eyes up there, put smiling people. People want to connect with people rather than with things, buildings, scenery, that kind of thing. um, what do you think?
so going back to, you said a low ticket item to a volume of customers, that's that is more what I say transactional at the end of the day versus a complex sale that is more, they may find you, on the internet, but when it gets down to it, they want to talk to a human. And in the transactional sales, they may want to talk to a human, but they may want it as frictionless as possible and, do all their buying online. We lost Simone for a second, Nate.
She's back.
I don't know if you heard that, Simone.
Oh,
You asked me a very crazy question and you disappeared. I don't know if you heard what I said.
I'm sorry, somebody was at the door, so I had to go and pick up. But go ahead. You were talking about it being transactional. If
It's
it's
more
like,
transactional. So again,
yes,
the way you set up your sales process is different than a what I call a very complex sale. You said very high cost and low volume versus very transactional sales. Um, Oracle, Oracle sells a lot of software. They via the internet. It's in the sales funnel. And then as it spirals down the sales funnel, human beings inside sellers are communicating, just by, chat boxes to the buyer, and they never even talk to you. A
right,
human may have a question. And hey, I'm Alex. I'm from Oracle. I'm in Austin, Texas. I love when where you're from. I'm from Austin, Texas. So you're talking to somebody at the headquarters there. How can I help you? And they via the chat box, sell the product. So that's what I call very. It's a different type of sale than a complex sale.
true,
Yeah,
true. Even in these, and like you were saying with the chatbot, the more you can inject human interaction
absolutely.
into those customer support areas, into the sale processes, give people the option to speak to somebody, as they're making a decision. The more you can put human interaction in there, even in the transactional sales process.
Absolutely.
That helps you all that much more, and can get you the sale. Whereas, not having any human interaction at all, can lose a lot of sales.
Absolutely. So again, to your point is it sounds that that's what you're working at in your business, is that automated, um, I don't want to say chat box, but you got, and I say you got to make it personalized. So,
Yeah.
One
A lot
one
of what I
thing.
do, or I'll let you go next, Nate. But a lot
No
of
problem.
what I like to do is I tell people that, let the computer do what the computer can do, and let the humans do what only the humans can do. If we can if we can leverage the technology, the AI, the chatbots, and all of the automation tools that we have access to, and allow the humans to not do the mundane, repetitive things, that just let the computer do that, and we focus on the creative and the conversational, and the human interaction. Then I think it's a good fit when we leverage the tools we have to make our jobs as humans that much easier and faster and better.
Absolutely. And again, going back, artificial intelligence, you're building a house, people are using power tools instead of hand tools. Artificial, more effective and more efficient.
Absolutely.
And so once
One
you
thing.
get them to the point down the funnel, then there may be a point where there is human interaction. That's what I'm working on is the top of the funnel, when I call it marketing qualified leads. And they see, and people ask me, marketing now has to take the buyer journey farther down the funnel,
Mhm.
because having a salesperson pick up the phone or visit somebody, again, a salesperson's expensive. But
Yeah.
if marketing can pull them down the funnel to a certain point where now that marketing qualified lead becomes a qualified lead, then the seller picks up the phone or goes sees that person because it's qualified.
Right.
What I hate, people out cold calling, and I may get in trouble with this, it's dead, but people still do, solicitations, and I get it.
They'll do it. Yeah.
Good friends in the
And it
copy
must be working
business.
for somebody, because a lot of people are doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I got good friends that work and sell copiers, and they all on businesses. They're
Yeah.
an account, and they'll go to the one down the street and just check in and try to create a relationship.
Absolutely.
That's old school, but in this day and age, it it's all about, especially what you talked about, the the high volume, low trash. It's a different game. So,
Have
Go
either of
ahead,
you
Nate.
heard? Have either of you heard of the Agogi sequence? If that's how it's pronounced. I'm not 100% sure. I'll share my screen here.
Let me give you access.
Okay.
Let's do that. Okay, go ahead.
It's right here. Okay, so this is the Agogi sequence. Again, I'm not 100% sure about the pronunciation, but apparently it's a reference to the warrior training in Sparta, where they would actually separate the younger trainees off into groups until they were ready to go into battle, and they would keep separating them off, et cetera, and keep going on until eventually they were done and ready to go. So in this case, it's a sequence for sales or marketing, whatever type of outreach. And going back to the points that we've already made, this is a combination of automations and manual outreach. And you'll notice the number of days here. Speaking to John's point about how the process is needing to address the buyer's journey further along. It's a much longer journey in some cases, and people are coming in and out of at all points really. And so this is kind of an interesting thing that I just came across here recently, and I don't know if does that sound appealing to you? What do we think about something like this?
Well, if you want to connect with somebody, I would do, connect, start following somebody on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Just follow it, and then reply to some of their comments. Is this somebody you want to get to know? It's not 27 days. I'm sorry, it's a lot longer than that.
Is that right?
But I mean, but my big thing is if you want to meet somebody on LinkedIn, follow them, and then see what they have to say, and then make some comments, and then reach out to them and try to connect. I'd like to have I like your company. LinkedIn's a great place to do to do some of your research.
I think this is kind of it's a combination. Trying to reach out to the individual at different points. So the manual email that's being sent out, which is presumably a cold email,
Yeah.
and then you go and follow them on LinkedIn, like you mentioned, and then you're actually calling them. Like this is just the first day, even, and then 3 days later, it's an email reply. That can be automated, but the rest of it is, you know, um, non-automated phone calls, obviously, because haven't AI has not gotten there yet, where they're actually making phone calls for us, right? So,
It's very aggressive. So,
yeah,
buyers, buyers buy when they're ready, willing, and able. And in this particular, they may not be ready, or they may not be able. So you've got to, I know there's a phone call in there, but getting the buyer on the phone is what you have. That's the tenacious part that you have to.
yeah. I'm trying to think of, is this too aggressive? Like, what scenario would this be useful in? I don't know. But,
I think maybe if you would space out the timing, and maybe also depends on what content of these emails, and what are you talking about on the phone? Like, are you being very aggressive, or are you being a bit more conversational? I think that's also that could be a consideration in it. But from on my list, people will tell me that they appreciate me following up with them on a consistent basis, because sometimes, like, they want what I have to offer, but they get distracted, they may forget, but they appreciate the follow-up. So I have what I have on my system what I call, it's an email and text sequence that I call my forever nurture. It continues to send them stuff, send them emails. I tell stories, I give them like insights that I have, and then sometimes I just check in, and people appreciate that.
And
So far,
and
anyway.
eventually, they qualified leads at the end of the day. And
And that's another thing. It's like all of the communication isn't about, okay, I'm trying to sell you something, but some of it is. I'm a business person. I am selling my stuff. So sometimes I'll ask them, I guess, in a soft way, like, are you looking for this, or are you having this issue? I have such and such available. you know so they do know that I am trying to sell something, but at the same time, I'm also just checking in. How are you doing? How is business going? What's happening? Anything I can help you with,
yeah,
kind
that's
of
a
thing.
you got it, Simone. I mean, you're nailing it. And then once you have the conversation, then you talk about formulate your value proposition. What are you going to talk to them about on the next conversation? And then from there, once you do the value proposition, you make your sales call, and basically close them or not, or listen and modify, what I call listen and modify. And, but it's really about formulating your value proposition, making the sales call, evaluating, modifying, and, what does this customer want at the end of the day? So the process is target customer, and I call getting them on the phone, discovery, creating what I call your value proposition, and go present and then execute and modify.
What would you, excuse me, so when it comes, what do you say to someone who says, hey, I just have a small business, I don't really need to have these processes, I'm just a small business, I'm happy with, I guess, the way things are going. I don't know. What do you
Yeah,
say at that point?
I always ask, do you want to grow your business?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
That's the first question.
yeah, and if you do, let's put, and again, every business is different. And I go back to, who's your target customer? What's your value proposition? And, how are we going to go after it,
So
And
would you say then, John, that having a systematic, repeatable process in your business for sales specifically is crucial if you want to grow your business then?
yeah, it is crucial. I mean, for example, somebody, and I saw this company the other day, when somebody calls and leaves a message, how soon do you get back to them? Well, I don't know. Well, sales is, you got to create a sense of urgency. Because if you don't sell something, all these expenses underneath don't get paid. You got to sell something to get paid for it, of course, before you can go hire whatever you want to do. Now, some companies are happy. They're satisfied with their revenue. Things are good. That's fine, but you got to have a process in place. And I'm a big 80-20 guy. I talked about that when we first got, when I tell people, when you look in your closet in the morning, 20% of your clothes you wear 80% of the time. So
Yeah.
what do your 20% of your customers make up 80% of your revenue? And then with this other 80, what are you doing there? And price, some companies may have 3 or 4 salespeople calling on this other 80%. And I'm like, oh my God, maybe
That's really interesting.
yeah.
Because you talked about how some people,
Sorry, my
some people
dog's
may be
barking.
happy with where they are. Um, so it's also crucial to know like what your customers' goals are. If your aim is to help businesses to grow, and they're like, well, I'm good. I'm good where I am. I'm happy with my revenue. Well, is that not an ideal customer, or do you kind of help them to see that maybe their clients, their customers are looking for them to do more and to be more?
Great question. And again, my sense if somebody tells me that, they're not willing to do the things they have to do to grow. And that's not my ideal customer. When I work with clients, I talk to them about the things they need to do. I said, so when we have a conversation next week, of the 3 things we talked about you completing, how are we doing there? What worked, what didn't work, and what are we going to do differently? It's all about growing, the mindset of growing. If you don't want to grow, then you're not coachable. You're not willing to do the things that you need to do to grow your business.
You have to be
You got to
willing
get
to walk
comfortable.
away at that point, huh?
You got to get comfortable with the uncomfortable sometimes. But I always tell people everybody puts their clothes on the same way every morning. So pick up the phone and make some sales calls. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What are your thoughts, John, on the combination or I guess, where sales meets marketing?
Great question. It's again, I was in industry, so I used to say to the marketer, go and make some sales calls with me. Come on, get behind. The desk is a lonely place to be.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on the industry, but what I see is marketing is taking more and more of a role in building the sales funnel.
Yeah, I've heard that too. I've heard that if your marketing is good enough, then your sales is very easy. But if your marketing is not that great, then you have to spend a lot of time in the sales process.
Yeah. I always say your ideal customer, marketing's job is to touch all those ideal customers. Everyone, whatever your target customers, marketing needs to go after them. Now, sales won't sell them all, but marketing needs to get them in the funnel.
Yeah, and we had talked about that, I think, in our conversation here today, even how the buyer process is much different nowadays, and people are educating themselves before they even get to you, and that's the job of marketing, I guess, in that case, where they're educating the customers, giving them information that they need and are able to find. So
Yeah.
um,
You have to. I was seeing this the other day where it was a conversation you and I had, Nate, where we talked about the buyer's process, where in your content, in your marketing, you kind of make them aware that they have a problem, and then once they're aware that they have a problem, now you have to share with them like how to, or not how to, but like let them know there is a solution, and then the next step is to let them know that you're the solution. What you do is the solution, and then your sales process is easier because they come to you already qualified, already knowing that you're the person. And I remember having a sales call with a coach who she had done a few weekly mastermind, or she did monthly masterminds or something like that, or weekly meetings that she did and that I would come to. And by the time I had a call with her, I was already sold. I just needed to know what the price was and where should I show up every month. That was it. I was already sold.
No, there's no process there. And I tell people, if somebody's ready to buy, sell them. Don't try to go through the whole process. That's the death to you, because if you talk too much, and again, there's many books on the sales processes. It's just having a conversation, meeting the buyer where they are on their journey. And they may just be at the beginning stages, so you're not going to sell them today. Just know that, or they're ready to buy and sell them. Don't. Oh, I got to take them through the whole process. You don't.
You have to understand where your customer is when they show up to you. Like how are they answering your questions, and how do you know that they're ready to buy? Or I think I kind of let her go through the process. But yeah, to be honest, you're right. I didn't need to go through the whole process. I was pretty much ready. I just needed to know, like, how much do I need to put a deposit? Do I need to transfer funds? What needs to happen here? I'm ready to go.
Take my money, yeah. John, I was wondering if we're getting kind of close to the time here, cutoff. Do you have a final call to action, maybe to, talk about your book or whatever?
My book, sure. I mean, the book I wrote it with another professor, and we just couldn't stand what we were teaching in college. Students to pass a test. So I just took all my experience, his experience, and the book starts with what is strategy, understanding strategy. What is your unique value proposition? And I talk about Michael's 4 to 5 forces, I talk about Warren Buffett's moat, because Warren Buffett, when he goes and meets a company for the first time, he'll say, "What's your moat?" And why do people do business with you? And do you have a wide and thick moat, so you can grow and prosper? And so I take them through understanding, the importance of strategy, and then I take them through a business model canvas. We do some exercises. It's all about exercises and cases. And then we get into the meat of the book, how you structure a sales organization to maximize the selling effort, hiring the right people, because it's all about, once you have the strategy, do you have the right people to execute the tasks? Now, what's fascinating is, I was in sales. I get paid on revenue. That's what I got paid on. But guess what? Revenue is a lagging indicator. You may not get that revenue for 18 to 24 months. So what we talk about in the book does not talk about is activities. Are the salespeople doing the right activities? And are you coaching that sales team on the right activities? Not revenue, activities, because activities are something you can control. Revenue, you can't. Oh, I can control. No, you can't. A buyer's ready to buy when they're willing, ready, and able. So it's all about activities. And then how do you design a territory to maximize the selling effort? And then the close. Everybody closes. Close is when the real work begins, because now you have to execute on that close. So the book is all case driven. 90% of the cases I wrote myself, just on stuff I did out there when I was running sales organizations. And it's fun to teach you because students don't know what they don't know, and so it's a learning moment for them. And I do use 2 Harvard cases, an ethics case, and if I have time in the semesters, Tom Siebel's case. It's a salesperson that was not following the process, and had this $1 million deal. And it's so obvious to me when you start reading the case, dude, you just had to ask one question in your first meeting, and you would have sold this thing, or you would have gotten to know, found out the right person that you needed to talk about selling this, and could have avoided this whole angst through the whole case. So it's just a learning moment, but it's really structuring sales organizations, understanding strategy. And I worked with a company up in Washington, D.C. It was private equity. They did about 36 million in sales, and they wanted to hire 5 salespeople. And at the end of it, we hired 1, and we brought an inside seller and saved the guy a lot of money. And they've grown to about 42 million now. Who's your customer? Let's hire somebody for who your customer is, and this other 80%, let's bring somebody inside to manage that. So
Awesome. So when you have a strategy and you have good processes in place, you end up not wasting a lot of money. I mean, look at how the organization saved on hiring 4 people to hiring just 1, and they were fine with that 1.
Yeah, I'd say you're going to
save money and made more money.
Yeah, made more money.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
So I tell one other story. I had a company up in Wisconsin, did the 80-20, and we ended up firing about 60% of their customers. Gave them big price increases, and they grew from 36 to like 55 million in sales and made all kinds of money. So it's just that simple. Like I said, is really understanding who your customer is, and I tell people, don't chase shiny objects. Focus on what your knitting is.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for those lessons. Nate, any other questions you want to ask?
I think I'm good. It's been a great conversation, John. I appreciate your coming joining us here. Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you for being here.
Now, where are you located, Simone?
I am in the DC area
Okay.
right now.
You work at home so you don't fight the traffic.
No, thankfully. Um, so yeah, thank you so much for being here, everyone. And thank you for sticking around with us and listen to us talk about sales and sales processes and how it works with your marketing. Comment below your biggest takeaway, and we'll put a link to John's books, and let you know how you can find him. And we will see you back here again next